Imagine this. In the frozen heart of 1823 Pennsylvania, 15 young souls, chosen by God to spread His word, begin convulsing in their beds. Their tongues twist into ancient curses, fingernails blacken like charred sin, and one by one, they whisper of a forbidden book before death claims them. But what if their agony wasn't illness, but judgment from above, or something whispering from below? In the shadowed valleys of western Pennsylvania, where the Allegheny winds howl like tormented spirits through ancient oaks, stood Witmore Seminary, a bastion of divine calling forged in the fires of post-revolutionary zeal. Established in 1819 by the Presbyterian Church, it was more than stone and mortar. It was a crucible for souls, where young men from humble farms and bustling cities alike were hammered into vessels of God's will. Named for Reverend Josiah Witmore, a martyr of the war who bled out on Saratoga's fields clutching his Bible, the seminary sprawled across 200 acres of untamed woodland, its limestone halls rising like solemn sentinels against the encroaching wilderness. The air there carried the scent of damp earth and wood smoke, mingled with the faint, perpetual incense of chapel candles, beeswax flickering in iron sconces, casting elongated shadows that danced like doubts across the pews. This was no mere school. It was a spiritual fortress on America's frontier, training ministers to tame the wild souls beyond the mountains. The curriculum was a gauntlet of the sacred and the scholarly. Mornings dissecting Greek verbs that unlocked the New Testament's secrets, afternoons poring over Latin exegesis, where every word of Augustine or Calvin felt like a divine whisper or a stern rebuke. Evenings brought homiletics, where students practiced sermons that could stir the hardest hearts, their voices echoing in the small chapel with its vaulted ceiling painted in faded frescoes of biblical scenes. Adam's fall, Judas's betrayal, reminders that sin lurked even in holy places. The farm on the grounds provided sustenance. Rows of corn whispering in the breeze, pigs rooting in muddy pens, all tended by the students themselves as a lesson in humility and providence. Cobblestone paths, slick with autumn leaves or winter frost, connected the dormitories. Spartan chambers with narrow beds, rough wool blankets, and single windows framing the endless forest, where wolves howled at night, as if echoing the inner battles of faith. The students, 43 in that fateful autumn of 1823, were a tapestry of human frailty and fervent aspiration, each bearing the weight of their calling like a crown of thorns. Marcus Hartwell, at 28 the eldest, carried the ghost of his late wife in every furrowed brow. Her death in childbirth had shattered him, driving him from his schoolteacher's desk to these halls, where he sought redemption in theology's depths. His eyes, deep set and shadowed, held a quiet storm. Classmates turned to him in the dim lamplight of study hours, his voice a steady anchor amid debates on predestination versus free will. Young Timothy Brennan, barely 18, embodied raw sacrifice, his Irish immigrant mother's calloused hand from years as a seamstress, his father's broken body from mine collapse. Timothy's room was a shrine to determination, a worn Bible on his desk, pages dog-eared its psalms of comfort, candle stubs burned low from midnight vigils. His laughter, rare but bright, cut through the seminary's solemn air like sunlight piercing fog. Samuel Brewster, robust and jovial, hailed from Lancaster County's fertile fields, his family's legacy etched in the soil. His cheeks flushed with health, he wielded humor like a shepherd's staff, easing tensions with tales of barnyard mishaps that veiled deeper lessons on God's provision. Peter Cunningham, orphaned young and raised by a pious grandfather, moved through the days like a shadow, his prayers fervent, his fast severe, seeking visions in the chapel's silence where the altar's cross loomed like an accusation. James Morrison, from Philadelphia's merchant elite, defied his father's worldly ambitions. His gift for languages made Hebrew psalms flow like poetry, but his heart wrestled with the pull of privilege versus poverty's call. Thomas Milliken, the inquisitive one from Pittsburgh, probed theology's edges, his questions on reason and revelation, sparking fireside debates that lingered like embers, challenging the boundaries between faith and doubt. And David Crane, the pragmatic survivor-to-be, grounded in central Pennsylvania's farmlands, approached ministry with steady hands. No dramatic conversion, just an unyielding conviction, like roots in rocky soil. Overseeing this fragile fellowship was Dr. Cornelius Ashford, a towering figure in his 50s, forged at Princeton under Archibald Alexander's tutelage. His face, lined like ancient parchment, held eyes that pierced souls, stern yet compassionate, demanding excellence while nurturing spirits. He lived on grounds with his wife Margaret, a beacon of maternal grace, her Philadelphia education lending elegance to her care. She mended shirts, hosted teas, her voice a soothing balm in the masculine enclave. Their daughter, Sarah, 18 and radiant, blended beauty with intellect. Her laughter in the library, stacking tomes of Edwards and Luther, stirred unspoken longings among the students, a reminder of earthly temptations amid celestial pursuits. The faculty rounded this holy microcosm. Professor Jonathan Hartley, master of Greek and Hebrew, his wit as dry as desert sands, infusing lessons with German theological nuances while guarding orthodoxy. Professor William Sterling, the homiletic sage, wove church history into living tapestries, his sermons in chapel igniting hearts like revival fires. Life pulsed to a rhythmic liturgy. Dawn devotions at 5, solitary prayers in chilled rooms where breath fogged the air. Breakfast at 6, silent save for scriptural readings over porridge steaming in wooden bowls. Classes till noon, the scratch of quills on vellum harmonizing with professors' cadenced lectures. Afternoons for reflection, walks in woods where fallen leaves crunched underfoot, evoking Eden's loss, or exercises in the rudimentary gymnasium, bodies disciplined as minds. Evening chapel at 6, psalms sung in harmonious baritones, the chapel's windows. Glowing amber against twilight, sermons probing sin's depths and grace's heights. Nights brought communal study, debates flickering by hearthlight, then retreat to beds where dreams mingled theology with homesickness. The nearby hamlet of Millbrook, 300 souls strong, orbited the seminary like faithful planets. Farmers delivering produce, blacksmiths forging tools, a gristmill grinding flour for communal bread. Their Presbyterian Church, modest with its whitewashed steeple, hosted Dr. Ashford's occasional sermons. The townsfolk proud of this divine outpost, attending graduations with baskets of pies and prayers. Yet beneath this veneer of piety, shadows gathered. The autumn of 1823 descended with brutal foreshadowing. October snows blanketing the grounds like shrouds, November drifts isolating the seminary in a white silence that amplified every creak of timber, every whisper of wind. Students burrowed deeper into studies. The library's 3,000 volumes, Calvin's stern institutes, Luther's thunderous theses, a fortress against the cold. But isolation bred introspection, and introspection unearthed doubts, whispers of frontier perils, where ministers faced not just wilderness but moral abysses, drunken settlers, native conflicts, the siren call of unbelief. The first fracture came on December 3rd, a morning crisp as breaking ice. Thomas Milliken, the probing intellect from Pittsburgh, absent from chapel, a breach in the sacred order. David Crane, his roommate, found him, bedclothes twisted like serpents, body arching in spasms that mocked human form, limbs flailing with demonic vigor. Unintelligible utterances spilled forth, Latin fragments, inverted prayers. Dominus vobiscum twisted to Dominus viscum infernum, a blasphemy that chilled the soul. But the fingernails, oh, the fingernails, ebony as midnight sin, spreading like corruption's ink up his hands, a visible mark of inner rot. David's cry rent the dormitory's hush, drawing classmates in a rush of slippers and nightshirts. They pinned Thomas down, his back bowed like a possessed bowstring, eyes rolled to whites, veins bulging dark beneath graying skin. The air thickened with the scent of sweat and fear, mingled with a sulphurous undertone from his ragged breaths. Dr. Ashford burst in, his nightcap askew, face paling at the sight. This was no mere fever, but a tableau of spiritual warfare, the young man's words profaning the very air sanctified by daily prayers. A rider was dispatched through knee-deep snow to summon Dr. Edmund Whitley from Millbrook, horse hooves crunching frozen paths under a leaden sky. In the interim, Ashford led prayers, knees on cold floorboards, voices trembling. Deliver us from evil. Yet doubt crept in like frost through cracks. Was this illness or retribution for unspoken sins? Thomas's questions on reason versus revelation. Had they veered too close to heresy, inviting divine censure? Whitley arrived, windswept and stern, his bag heavy with lancets and laudanum. A veteran of epidemics, he probed with steady hands, pulse erratic as a storm-tossed ship, breaths whistling like winds through catacombs, skin pallid as grave linen, dark veins pulsing like hidden rivers of poison. The blackening crept to neck and eyes, framing a face contorted in unholy ecstasy. Blasphemies poured forth, precise inversions of liturgy, as if scripted by a fallen angel versed in seminary texts. Whitley bled him, dark blood clotting unnaturally, induced purge, yielding black bile reeking of brimstone, staining basins like accusatory ink. Word spread like wildfire through tinder. Students clustered in common rooms, faces illuminated by flickering candles, murmuring theories. Consumption? Venom? Or judgment? As in biblical plagues, where God smote the faithless. Ashford quelled superstitions with authoritative calm, urging rational faith, yet his own prayers that night carried a desperate edge. Sarah Ashford, defying protocol, tended with cool cloths, her touch on his icy fevered skin evoking Mary's at the cross, compassion amid horror. As night deepened, Thomas's torments intensified, spasms shaking the bed frame, utterances devolving to guttural growls that echoed through halls like infernal echoes. Vigil keepers read psalms, voices quavering, the seminary's walls seeming to absorb the dread, groaning in sympathy with the wind. At 3 a.m. on December 4th, clarity pierced the chaos. Convulsions ceased. Thomas's eyes focused, terror etching his features. The book in the chapel. God forgive us all, he gasped, voice pure and pleading, a final confession before breath fled. His body slackened, blackness receding like retreating shadows at dawn, leaving a husk pale and peaceful. Whitley's notes captured the enigma, symptoms vanishing post-mortem, as if the afflicting force had withdrawn, sated. Funeral rites 2 days later. Coffin borne through snow to the chapel cemetery. Unmarked grave yawning like an open wound. Ashford's eulogy wove grief with hope. Thomas's intellect a light extinguished too soon, his passion a testament to divine calling. Mourners wept. Timothy's sobs raw, Marcus's prayer graveside invoking mercy. The earth thudding onward like final judgments. But unease festered. Thomas's words lingered like ghosts. What book? What sin demanded such atonement? Winter tightened its grip, snow piling like accumulated guilt, dreams plaguing sleep with footsteps in empty corridors, shadows lengthening in chapel light. Scholarship faltered, recitations stumbled, lectures met with vacant stares toward the forest, where bare branches clawed the sky like accusing fingers. In this hallowed ground, seeds of dread took root. The seminary, once a beacon of redemption, now harbored shadows of retribution. Guilt's black stain spreading, sin's whisper growing. 15 would fall, each death a chapter in a tale of divine justice or demonic deceit, their legacies etched not in stone, but in the soul's eternal ledger. What forbidden knowledge lurked in that chapel book? What price for probing heaven's mysteries? The answers, buried for centuries, now claw toward the light, demanding we confront the thin veil between faith and folly, grace and damnation. In the wake of Thomas Milliken's untimely demise, Witmore Seminary clung to its routines like a drowning man to driftwood, the air thick with unspoken dread that seeped into every crevice of its limestone walls. Dr. Cornelius Ashford, ever the pillar of Stoic faith, doubled down on the sacred schedule. Chapel bells tolling more insistently, their bronze echoes rolling through snow-muffled valleys like calls to repentance. He orchestrated extended prayer vigils in the chapel's dim glow, where candle flames danced erratically on brass holders, casting elongated shadows that seemed to whisper judgments on the bowed heads below. Students knelt on worn wooden kneelers, the scent of frankincense mingling with the musty odor of old hymnals, their voices murmuring psalms of deliverance. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Yet, beneath this veneer of devotion, hearts pounded with primal fear, eyes darting to darkened corners where grief's phantom lingered. Ashford's efforts aimed to weave comfort from Scripture's threads, but the shadow of Thomas's convulsing form, his blackened nails like accusations of hidden sin, refused to dissipate, a dark nebula eclipsing the seminary's spiritual light. Unbeknownst to the community, this was no mere isolated tragedy, but the opening verse in a symphony of sorrow, a methodical unraveling that would strip bare illusions of safety, challenging doctrines of divine mercy against the raw face of inexplicable evil. Each death would mirror the last, not as random strikes of fate, but as deliberate strokes of some cosmic retribution. Guilt's ink spreading across souls, justice's blade carving deeper into the flesh of the faithful. The pattern emerged like a biblical plague, precise and unforgiving, forcing survivors to confront whether this was God's hand smiting the presumptuous or Satan's subtle snare for the overreaching. 3 days post-funeral, on December 9th, the veil tore again. James Morrison, Thomas's confidant and study companion from Philadelphia's refined streets, shattered the pre-dawn hush. At precisely 3 a.m., the witching hour etched in memory as Thomas's final breath, James's body betrayed him. His roommate, William Foster, jolted awake to the bedframe's violent shudder, sheets twisting like serpents around James's arching form. Convulsions gripped him, limbs flailing with unholy force, as if invisible strings pulled by a malevolent puppeteer. The air filled with guttural utterances, Latin inversions of sacred vows, Gloria in excelsis Deo, warped to Gloria in infernus Diabolo, a profane echo that profaned the dormitory's sanctified silence. Within hours, his fingernails darkened to obsidian, spreading like moral corruption up his fingers, while his skin assumed a cadaverous gray, veins throbbing darkly beneath, as though poison coursed not through blood, but through the soul itself. Foster's cries pierced the night, bare feet pounding frozen floors slick with frost, summoning Ashford and Whitley. The doctor, his face etched deeper with worry lines since Thomas's autopsy, arrived with a satchel heavy as his heart, lancets glinting coldly under lantern light. Whitley's dread had fermented in the interim. He'd scoured yellowed medical tomes by candle's flicker, ink-stained fingers tracing entries on poisons, fevers, deliriums. Letters dispatched to Philadelphia's learned physicians yielded no solace, no precedent for this symphony of symptoms. Convulsions mimicking demonic possession, discoloration evoking biblical leprosy, vocalizations hinting at tongues of fire turned to ash. Individually explicable, perhaps, arsenic for spasms, gangrene for blackening. But woven together, they defied science's loom, suggesting a malady born not of nature, but of the supernatural. Examining James, Whitley noted the eerie replication, progression mirroring Thomas's to the minute, phrases identical as if recited from a cursed script. The seminary stirred like a disturbed hive, students clustering in doorways, faces pale as communion wafers, whispers of curses slithering through halls. Ashford quelled the rising tide of superstition with authoritative sermons, urging faith over fear, rationality over rumor. Yet eyes betrayed terror. The illusion of isolation shattered, replaced by the gnawing certainty that death stalked among them, selective and sinister. James succumbed after exactly 21 hours, his clarity returning in a final, harrowing gasp. The book in the chapel. God forgive us all. The words hung like incense smoke, identical to Thomas's, igniting Whitley's suspicions of contagion, or worse. He mandated quarantine. Contacts isolated in spare rooms, their breaths watched like ticking clocks. James's effects consigned to flames, acrid smoke curling skyward as a futile ward against the unseen foe. The dormitory, fumigated with sulphur's hellish reek, stood sealed, doors barred with iron resolve. Panic's roots deepened, the seminary transforming from sanctuary to sepulchre. 40 souls, now 39, navigated days laced with dread, meals uneaten for fear of tainted bread, conversations laced with Scripture's armor. Put on the whole armor of God. Ashford amplified devotions, chapels swelling with fervent pleas, the organ's somber notes underscoring litanies for mercy. Letters flew to Philadelphia's church elders, pleading for aid. Reverend Dr. Jonathan Blackwood, a silver-haired sentinel of the faith, was summoned, his reputation for crisis forged in scandal's fires, from embezzlements to heresies. Before Blackwood's arrival, the cycle renewed on December 12th. Samuel Brewster, the jovial Lancaster farmer's son whose laughter once warmed winter nights, fell at 3 a.m. His robust frame contorted in familiar agony, black nails emerging like stigmata of sin, Latin blasphemies spilling forth, gray pallor claiming his ruddy cheeks. Whitley, notebook in hand, chronicled the macabre precision, timing. Impeccable, symptoms scripted. Samuel's death at 21 hours sealed the pattern, his dying plea echoing. The book in the chapel. God forgive us all. 3 now gone. The seminary reeled. Whitley grappled with reason's limits, pondering if this was no disease, but divine indictment, or demonic design. Blackwood descended on December 15th like a biblical prophet, his blue eyes piercing the gloom, carriage wheels crunching snow as if grinding doubt underfoot. Convening Ashford, Whitley, and faculty in the head study, fireplace crackling with false warmth. He dissected accounts, symptoms probed, connections sought. Interviews with students revealed threads, shared meals, studies, prayers, but nothing conclusive. Privately unnerved by the uniformity, Blackwood decreed quarantine. Gates locked, no ingress or egress, the seminary an island in winter sea. Letters to families assured safety amid prayers. Inside, fear reigned supreme. Routine rigidified under Blackwood's command. Extended chapels where psalms rose like incense. Classes persisting amid distraction. Buddy pairs vigilant for symptoms whisper. Yet the fourth strike came December 18th. Peter Cunningham, the ascetic seeker, convulsing at the witching hour. His pious frame twisted, black corruption spreading, inverted liturgies profaning lips once pure. Whitley's notes swelled with details, identical phrases, unerring timeline. Peter's end mirrored all, his gasp invoking the chapel's enigmatic book. This recurring lament seized Whitley and Blackwood. Dying words, in Scripture's lens, often unveiled truths, confessions from death's threshold carrying prophetic weight. Ashford resisted chapel searches, deeming it sacrilege to profane the sacred for delirious ravings. But Blackwood, scarred by church skeletons, hidden affairs, doctrinal deviances, insisted. Institutions harbored shadows, and consistency screamed for scrutiny. By December 20th, panic crested, students fasting from paranoia, huddling in Scripture circles, voices cracking in nocturnal cries. Faculty faltered, Hartley's Greek mangled by trembling recitations, Sterling's histories pierced by fearful outbursts. Letters smuggled out begged escape. Young Timothy's missive to his mother wept of eternal farewells. Marcus Hartwell emerged as shepherd, his maturity a balm, yet even he buckled under death's yoke. That night fractured the facade. David Crane, Thomas's roommate and silent witness, sought Whitley in shadowed quarters. Trembling at the door, voice a whisper of shame, David confessed. A clandestine cadre, himself, Thomas, James, Samuel, Peter, Marcus, had unearthed a forbidden tome in the chapel's bowels. Hidden behind the altar during October repairs, bound in leathery hide evoking human flesh, pages of ancient parchment scrawled in Latin, Hebrew, arcane sigils. Twice weekly nocturnal vigils decoded its enigmas, interpreting as divine arcana to elevate their ministry. The revelation thundered through Whitley. Victims linked not by chance, but by this accursed volume. David's account painted a descent. Initial euphoria, vivid dreams of angelic discourse, academic prowess surging like grace's flood. Yet symptoms crept, headaches like thorns in the brow, insomnia's vigil, cravings for raw flesh echoing Eden's fall. Thomas, the instigator, burned internally, heard whispers in tongues unknown, yet framed as ascension's trials. Social rifts widened, disdain for simplistic peers, elitism blooming like tares among wheat. Marcus harbored doubts, nightmares unmasking angels as demons, wisdom curdling to blasphemy. He urged cessation, but Thomas's charisma bound them, dubbing doubts faith's forge. Whitley's mind raced. Was this tome a relic of heresy, its study invoking spiritual poison? Biblical echoes resounded. Forbidden fruits knowledge bringing death, Babel's hubris scattering souls. The deaths, then, not random, but recompense. Sin's wage exacted with mechanical precision, each convulsion an echo of judgment, black nails marking the soul's stain. The seminary, once Edenic, now mirrored the wilderness. Temptation's fruit consumed, paradise lost. As confessions unfolded, the air grew heavier, candlelight flickering as if recoiling from truths unearthed. What arcane rites had they invoked? What price for piercing veils God meant sealed? The book loomed as Pandora's vessel, its secrets a siren call to ruin, redemption's path twisted to perdition's precipice. 11 more would fall, their agonies scripting a testament to hubris. In seeking heaven's heights, they plummeted to hell's depths, leaving survivors to ponder divine mercy's limits amid evil's inexorable grasp. In the suffocating aftermath of confessions and creeping dread, Witmore Seminary teetered on the precipice of spiritual abyss, its once hallowed halls now echoing with the ghosts of forbidden pursuits. Dr. Edmund Whitley's mind, a fortress of empirical reason, cracked under the weight of David's revelations, a timeline of transgression that wove the secret study's nocturnal vigils into the fabric of the fatalities. The group's obsession had festered like an untreated wound. Thomas Milliken, the zealous architect, transcribing arcane passages by flickering candlelight, his quill scratching parchment as if etching covenants with unseen powers. He proclaimed them the elect, vessels for a reformation that would shatter Presbyterian chains, ushering an era where mortals communed directly with the divine, or so he claimed. Yet, as symptoms bloomed in late November, throbbing temples like hammers of conscience, sleepless nights haunted by whispers in the dark, their euphoria curdled into aggression, paranoia blooming like thorns in a garden of faith. Superiority poisoned their interactions. Sidelong glances at classmates during chapel, dismissive sneers in debates, as if they alone glimpsed heaven's unfiltered light while others groped in shadows. The book's warnings, as David haltingly recounted, loomed like scriptural curses, passages foretelling ruin for the unworthy, those who dabbled in its mysteries without full surrender. Abandon the path, it intoned in twisted Latin, and the fires of judgment shall consume flesh and spirit alike. Whitley's probing elicited a pallor from David, his whisper barely piercing the room's heavy air, thick with the scent of burning tallow and fierce sweat. The tomes vanishing on November 30th had ignited chaos, the group converging in the chapel's midnight hush, only to find the compartment yawning empty, its stone edges cold and mocking. Panic surged, searches under pews where dust motes danced in lantern beams. Accusations hurled like stones at imagined spies among faculty and peers. Thomas's agitation peaked, his eyes wild under furrowed brows, voice rising in chapel corridors. They seek to bury the truth. But we are marked for glory. Nightmares unified them, shared visions of pursuit through fog-shrouded forests, spectral hunters demanding restitution for stolen wisdom, their forms shifting from angelic radiance to grotesque contortions. This disappearance reframed the deaths, not as microbial malice, but as echoes of a deeper malediction, psychological unraveling or spiritual retribution for hubris, the sin of Babel revisited in clerical robes. Whitley's scientific soul rebelled, yet the pattern's precision mocked natural law. Convulsions as ritualistic as sacraments, black nails symbolizing souls stained by presumption. He confided in Blackwood, the churchman's face hardening like granite under candles' glow, his experience with doctrinal deviances whispering of darker precedents, cults cloaked in piety, where forbidden knowledge exacted biblical tolls. The confession's ripple shattered the seminary's fragile facade. Blackwood, silver hair, glinting like a prophet's halo, launched interrogations in the head's study, flames crackling in the hearth as if fueled by revelations. Students filed in, faces gaunt from vigil and dread, unraveling a web of silence. Half the body had glimpsed chapel lights winking post-curfew, heard chants slithering through stained glass cracks. Intonations blending Latin liturgy with alien cadences, evoking exorcism tales from ancient tomes. Whispers of recruitment. Thomas approaching peers in library alcoves, eyes fervent, promising enlightenment beyond Edwards or Calvin. Decliners cited unease, the secrecy smacking of Gnostic heresy, rules bent like willow under storm. Faculty confessions deepened the wound. Professor Hartley, his dry wit forsaken, admitted spotting shifts. The group's essays gleaming initially with novel insights, then veering into provocations, questioning predestination with hints of free while unbound by grace, as if channeling forbidden European mystics. Sterling echoed, lectures disrupted by their disdain for stale traditions, evasions when pressed on sources, claiming divine downloads in solitary prayer. The core sextet, Thomas, James, Samuel, Peter, David, Marcus, had forged an enclave of arrogance, their unity a perversion of Christian fellowship, breeding division like tares sown by the enemy. Blackwood discerned the hallmarks of heresy, secrecy breeding pride, special revelations eclipsing Scripture, orthodoxy abandoned for esoteric allure. The book's absence post-theft suggested not causation, but catalyst. The death's a harvest of seeds sown in spiritual soil tainted by ambition. Defying Ashford's protests, the head's voice trembling, insisting on medical sanctity for the chapel, Blackwood ordered a scourging search. Lanterns bobbed through the nave, floorboards creaking under boots, revealing the compartment's remnants. Wax drippings like congealed blood, ash smudges hinting at incinerated incantations, wall etchings half effaced, ghostly sigils evoking Solomon's seals twisted profane. Deeper horrors emerged, rugs peeled back to expose floor carvings, geometric mandalas interlocking like chains, alien to cross or dove, pulsing with ritual intent. A cache of papers, tucked in a pulpit crevice, bore Thomas's script. Excerpts mingling Christian lexicon with occult invocations, summonings for entities beyond angelic hierarchies, meditations inducing trances where veils thinned, manipulations bending wills like reeds. A chilling rite detailed, 6 vessels convening to breach the gates, promising power but exacting soul price for failure. Whitley pieced it. Their sessions had unwittingly enacted this, transforming study into sacrifice, each death a toll for interdimensional trespass. The 5th fall struck December 21st. Marcus Hartwell, the doubter, convulsing at 3 a.m., his mature frame arching in betrayal, black corruption claiming hands that once clasped in prayer. His end deviated. No book lament, but rasped repetitions of chosen, marked for harvest, eyes wide with comprehension, as if glimpsing the reaper's scythe. Whitley noted the anomaly, a clue amid uniformity, perhaps doubt amplified torment, sin's wage compounded by hesitation. David, sole survivor, became a pariah orphan, washed with pity's veil over suspicion, his gaunt form haunting halls like Cain's mark. Guilt's anvil crushed him. Nights pacing dormitory floors worn smooth by predecessors' steps, terror's sweat beating like stigmata. Blackwood and Whitley extracted details. The book's prophecies of bridging realms, 6 lives fueling manifestation, souls ascending or damned. Irreversible once ignited, bound by ethereal chains, energy siphoned at intervals like tides to hell. Whitley theorized hysteria, collective delusion birthing psychosomatic plague, guilt manifesting as gangrene black nails, fear scripting synchronized ends. Blackwood countered with demonic thesis, arrogance inviting possession, orthodoxies breach a portal for principalities and powers, echoing Ephesians' warnings. Interruption for YouTube engagement. But as revelations mount, the chill deepens. If this tale grips your soul, share it with a kindred spirit drawn to shadows. Like to fuel our unearthings, subscribe for more veils lifted on history's horrors. Together, we'll pierce the veil to what lurks beyond. Tension crescendoed, December 22nd. David, symptoms raging, stomach aflame like Gehenna's fires, hallucinations murmuring accusations, embarked on a desperate quest. Probing seminary's underbelly, he recalled Thomas's musings, the book's antiquity predating foundations, hinting buried origins. Basement descent, air dank with mold, cobwebs veiling crates like shrouds, lantern casting jittery pools on bricked walls. A loose stone yielded, a concealed chamber, artifacts whispering pre-seminary sins. Tomes brittle as autumn leaves, documents yellowed by time's breath, relics glinting ominously. Revelations cascaded. Josiah Witmore, no war martyr but occult apostate. Ordained 1768, his pulpit once thundered grace, then whispered sorceries, folk charms, stellar divinations, ceremonies blending baptismal waters with alchemical elixirs. Congregations swayed initially by gifts, visions proclaimed, healings staged, yet extremism bred revolt. Accusations of diabolism, spirits consorted in midnight groves. Climax, 1781's great working. 6 volunteers as conduits, ritual in church's heart. Dawn revealed horror. Bodies contorted, extremities blackened, lips frozen in blasphemies, mirroring seminary's plague. Scandal erupted. Witmore tried for murder witchcraft, evidence damning. Implements, patterns scarred into sanctity. Hanged 1782, legacy entombed, not in glory, but oblivion. His grimoire, the book, stashed in what became the chapel, a trap for future fools, land consecrated for eternal rites. David's epiphany. Their group reenacted the abomination, death's not mishap, but mechanism. Life forces bridging abyssal gates, entities hungering for entry. Counter-rites existed, destroy the tome, sever bonds, but at survivor's peril, entities lashing out in wrath. Choice loomed, sacrifice self to seal, or complete cycle, unleashing unknown woes. David's vigil, pages blurring through tears, symptoms surging like divine fury. Dawn December 23rd, confession to Whitley and Blackwood, faces ashen in quarters dim. Whitley wrestled skepticism. Blackwood nodded gravely, precedents aligning. Ashford summoned, reluctance yielding to evidence's weight. Planning a confrontation with forces beyond mortal ken, redemption's flame against damnation's dark. As midnight tolled on December 23rd, 1823, the chapel of Witmore Seminary stood as a battlefield between light and encroaching void, its limestone walls weeping frost in the grip of an unnatural chill that seeped from the very earth. The air hung heavy, laden with the metallic tang of fear and the faint, acrid whisper of brimstone, as if the ground beneath remembered Josiah Witmore's hanged corpse twisting in 1782 wind. Dr. Cornelius Ashford, his face a mask of fractured certainty, finally yielded to the irrefutable. Historical parchments yellowed with damning truth, the grimoire's leathery binding pulsing faintly like a dying heart. This was no contagion of flesh, but a malignancy of spirit, a ritual unfinished across decades, demanding its harvest of sick souls to breach eternal barriers. The cadre, Blackwood, resolute as a biblical warrior; Whitley, reason's fortress crumbling; Ashford, piety's guardian humbled; and David Crane, the last marked vessel, his eyes hollowed by guilt's unyielding forge, resolved to confront the abyss. Adapting the grimoire's profane inversions into sanctified armor, Blackwood wove Presbyterian liturgy with exorcistic fervor. Psalms of deliverance thundering against Ephesians' principalities, prayers invoking Christ's victory over darkness. They bore the tome into the nave, candles guttering in iron sconces despite sealed doors, flames bending as if bowed by invisible malice. Materials arrayed on the altar, holy water blessed in trembling hands, Bibles open to passages of binding and loosing, a brazier hungry for heretical pages. The chapel transformed, once a haven of psalmody and sermon, now a threshing floor where wheat and chaff warred. Shadows elongated unnaturally across vaulted ceilings painted with faded seraphim, their wings seeming to twitch in mockery. Breath fogged the air like spectral exhalations, and floorboards creaked under no mortal weight, evoking buried screams from Witmore's 6 in 1781. Blackwood's voice rang out, steady yet strained, veins corded in his neck. In the name of the Father who casts out legions. Scriptures rolled like thunder. Psalm 91's sheltering wings, Revelation's sealing of the pit, beseeching divine siege against infernal encroachment. David, positioned at the altar's heart, became the fulcrum. Symptoms assailed him not as prelude to death, but as battleground. Hands quivering like aspen leaves in storm, fingernails inking to ebony as sin's visible stigma crept upward, veins darkening like roots delving into corrupted soil. Yet consciousness clung, grace's tenuous thread. No full convulsions, but a searing internal war, as if entities clawed through his veins, whispering temptations of power surrendered for peace. Climax ignited with the grimoire's immolation, pages torn and fed to flames, each curl of smoke a shriek silenced. Blackwood intoned cleansing litanies, Ashford and Whitley echoing in fervent chorus, voices braided against the gathering storm. Oppression crescendoed, temperature plummeting to bone-aching frost, candles flaring blue, then guttering low, shadows detaching from walls to coil like serpents. From below, grinding scrapes, as of talons raking stone thresholds, muffled roars echoing from abyssal depths, demanding passage thwarted. David's visions erupted, voice not his own yet piercing. They linger, my brothers, trapped in the threshold, souls suspended like Judas in the field of blood, neither heaven nor hell claiming them fully. He beheld the feeders, amorphous horrors of writhing void, eyes innumerable gleaming with ancient malice, siphoning life essence through Witmore's fractured gates. Fury radiated, threats to devour the seminary whole, faculty and students as collateral in retribution for interruption. Entities surged into David, body a besieged fortress, mind assailed with blasphemous inversions of the Apostles' Creed, flesh burning as if stoked by infernal forges. The struggle rent him, sweat beating cold despite inner inferno, limbs twitching in partial possession, guttural snarls escaping lips that moments prior pleaded mercy. Whitley gripped his arm, feeling unnatural cold pulsing beneath skin. Ashford wept openly, prayers fracturing into sobs. Blackwood stood, unyielding, cross raised like a standard. Final page consigned to fire, flames roaring unnaturally high, illuminating faces etched with terror and resolve. David's scream shattered the night, a primordial wail shaking rafters, dust sifting like grave soil. Body arched in full convulsion, black corruption racing to shoulders, voice devolving to demonic polyphony. Latin curses layered with ancient tongues, promising vengeance eternal. For a heartbeat, defeat loomed, the gates yawning wide. Then, rupture, oppression shattered like chains under divine hammer. Warmth flooded back, candles steadying to golden halos, shadows retreating to harmless corners. Silence descended, profound as post-resurrection tomb. David crumpled, breath ragged but vital, discoloration receding like tide from polluted shore, leaving pallid but living flesh. The counter-ritual triumphed, gates sealed, entities banished, Witmore's legacy cauterized in holy fire. Yet victory bore scars eternal. David Crane emerged alive, but abyss-gazed, eyes carrying shadows no sermon could dispel, a limp from spiritual wounds unseen. He ministered decades in Pennsylvania's rural folds, sermons thundering humility's necessity, pride's peril, warnings veiled as exhortations, drawing from wells of private torment. Unwed, childless, he shunned legacy, fearing taint's inheritance, dying quietly in old age, Bible clutched like talisman. The seminary perished, church elders, confronted with cursed provenance, shuddered at post-winter, citing logistical inaccessibility, a veil over exorcised ground. Ashford retreated to pastoral obscurity, theology rigidified against revelation sirens, family noting his midnight vigils, murmuring protections over sleeping kin. Hartley and Sterling scattered to safer academes, champions of surveillance, rooting out esoteric whispers before they flowered into heresy. Survivors dispersed. Many abandoned calling, faith fractured by glimpsed veils. Others clung fiercer to orthodoxy, armor against remembered dread. Whitley unraveled. Reason's edifice collapsed, practice forsaken for bottle's numb embrace. Dying 1835 amid delirium's blackened visions, screams echoing Latin profanities. Blackwood, fortified, became church's sentinel against occult incursions. Counsel veiled, actions decisive yet silent. Buildings decayed, sold ignorant, chapel morphed to parlor. Guests shivering in inexplicable chill, attributing to drafts while spirits' echoes lingered faint. Cemetery plowed under, remains relocated then lost, stones weathered to anonymity, names erased by time's indifferent hand. Records entombed. Whitley's notes, Blackwood's reports sealed in Presbyterian vaults, deaths masked as consumption with nervous prostration. David's letters, unearthed 2019 in familial attic, pierced the shroud. Confessions of seduction by forbidden fruit, remorse's lifelong lash, sermons as atonements unspoken. Modern lenses vary. Skeptics cite hysteria's contagion, isolation breeding psychosomatic doom. Others poison, herbal rites toxic, rare whispers murder, book thief silencing threats. Theologians affirm warfare real, entities invoked, pride's portal opened, grace's intervention sealing. The land healed, farms flourished sands hauntings, suggesting cleansing enduring. David's near sacrifice efficacious, Witmore's stain expunged. Yet the tale endures as mirror and warning. Purest zeal twisted by hubris birth's profoundest horror. 15 sincere souls, ambition's fire unchecked, consumed by flames they kindled. Past sins reverberate. Witmore's news failed to end his malignance, claiming innocence till confronted. Church's secrecy preserved order, yet starved posterity of caution. In our era of spiritual eclecticism, it thunders, shortcuts to divine depths court damnation's depths. Humility anchors, community guards, orthodoxy shields against voids masquerading as light. What lingers in your soul? Supernatural siege, or minds unraveling under guilt's weight? Do sealed gates hold eternal, or cracks remain for pride's whisper? Comment your conviction. What truly transpired that frozen winter? Subscribe for Shadows Unearthed. Notifications for chills delivered. Share to awaken others. Some doors, once opened, echo forever, even when slammed by sacrifice. Until next descent into darkness, guard your seeking.